Just a couple bad weather fans representing New York, talking all things sports. Man, what could go wrong? We got Alex, who's a fan of the Knicks, and Mike of the Nets. The yin-yang of the tri-state, place your bets on the Yankees, Giants, Mets, or Jets. Yeah, you should listen if it's sparking your interest. If you made a vow to your team, don't break it. Bad weather fans is the relation.
That's right. This is Bad Weather Fans, episode number 127. Mike Biseglia, Alex Bedezowitz, Kevin Durant still on the Nets, Donovan Mitchell still on the Utah Jazz, although we did have one Brooklyn Net rumor spike up with Jaylen Brown and all that surrounding that and the Boston Celtics. We'll talk about all of that and so much more. Alex, good morning. As we are recording this in the morning, is your fake background. You have the night version, you have the morning version. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good morning to you too. We got my coffee here with some water. We're ready to go. And you remember, if you guys want to support the podcast, make sure you download the episodes. That's the best way to help us out on all podcast apps. Download the episodes. You can download and then delete 10 seconds later, but that helps us out.
Don't say that. Don't delete it. Don't say that.
Well,
Keep it,
counts.
baby.
I mean, keep it. Keep it forever.
Don't delete it.
But if you don't have the space on your phone, man, I'm trying to be nice to those people who don't
then
have,
upgrade
the
your phone.
phone.
No, upgrade your phone.
Download everything.
And download everything. What is this? First of all, I have to say the juxtaposition between your background and my background this morning is really depressing.
If you didn't have that whatever switches on the right over your right shoulder, it would look like you're in prison, or you were hostage. Now that you got it out of the screen.
That's what my wife said.
You're seeing on YouTube.
I'm recording this morning in Pittsburgh, and I'm in an awesome house. I'm in my in-laws house, which is amazing, but I'm in an area in a location where I'm trying to work on like sound dynamics. So I'm just in front of a wall, and my wife was just working out here. Now I'm here. She goes, "It looks like you're in a hostage video where you're talking to people." And I said, "Now you just said the same thing." Yes, she said we need a newspaper. Now you said the same exact thing. So I am okay, everybody.
Yes, he is fine. Trust me. His wife just got him some coffee, and we're all good to go. So
yeah. So we're recording this in the morning, but the big news that happened a couple of days ago with the Brooklyn Nets was the Jaylen Brown, I guess, news that dropped in that the Nets and Celtics were engaged in a conversation. I did hear rumblings about this from people on Nets Twitter saying that the Nets and Celtics were engaging in conversations, but it was really early on in what was happening with Kevin Durant before really the market all dried up. And initially what I had heard was Rob Williams, Jaylen Brown, a bunch of picks, and maybe somebody else. And at the time I was like, okay, that's good. Then as time passed, nothing really happened. Revisit earlier this week, that news drops, and more and more, Alex, it feels to me that Kevin Durant to the Celtics is eventually going to happen.
Well, the Nets don't want to trade him. It's just clear. You're not going to get better than Jaylen Brown and a pick. Jaylen Brown is a borderline superstar. Was just took his team to the finals as the number 2 player. Pick is whatever. You got one. But the Nets are being greedy. Then you see yesterday, Broussard came out and said that they should demand. But the Nets are trying to get Marcus Smart as well as Jaylen Brown and picks, which is crazy. The Celtics aren't going to do that. Marcus Smart is the heart and soul of that team. And if they're giving up Jaylen Brown, who's the second best player on a team that got to the finals, that's enough to them. They'll be like, all right, well, whatever, we'll just run it back. They don't need to. And you play the leaking game, like who leaked this? I think it was Durant's camp maybe leaked it is my thoughts, just to put pressure on the Celtics or the Nets to put pressure on the Celtics. Now Jaylen Brown is pissed off. He tweets out with the eyes or
SMH,
whatever. Oh, the SMH. There you go. That's what he did. With
shaking my head if you didn't understand.
Yeah, shaking my head. So he's obviously annoyed, which rightfully so. You just took your team to the finals, and then you had all these Celtics things creep in with his Isaiah Thomas, how he played when his sister died, and then he got hurt, and then they didn't pay him. They said they'd pay him. Obviously, he was damaged goods at that point. In a respectful way, I should say. He was injured, so they're like, we can't pay you now, but still, like, you could have taken care of him to some capacity,
right?
After everything he did, he played through heartbreak and injury, and he was the centerpiece of that team. And then you just kicked him to the curb, and then now with Jaylen Brown, you just got to the finals. Now you want to trade him, but I mean, it's for Kevin Durant, but a 34-year-old Durant isn't worth as much as everybody thought. So, well, I thought I knew that this was going to happen, but now you're like, well, what do we do? And I think Jaylen Brown is the best, but I like I said before I started rambling, the Nets don't want to trade him. It's just clear.
Yeah, I think eventually a deal does get done. I've said this from jump. I think it does happen. I don't want to see it happen. I'd rather have Kevin Durant. There's a combination of things. I've addressed this with you in the past. I don't think it's a matter of Kevin Durant's age or anything that's playing in a factor of teams don't want to, look at that. It does play a factor because, for example, if you're younger, more would be involved. I can't argue against that. Of course it would be, but he's still a top 3 player in the NBA. So he's hasn't shown signs of letting up in his game. Yes, he's had injury issues, absolutely. But as far as his performance on the court, he wasn't good against the Celtics. Obviously, the Nets sucked in that series. But other than that, he's been phenomenal. And we saw how good Boston's defense was. So I do think, there is some market there. Obviously, it's not as big as the Nets wanted. I think there was a delusion that happened with the Rudy Gobert trade that kind of hurt everybody. With that in mind, though, the Nets still need to go out there and try to make a deal. It wouldn't make sense to just say on July 26th or whatever, July 25th, here's the deal, and you accept it. You have to go back and forth. And even if Boston's going to say no, who knows what happens? Who knows how things change? And who knows what will happen once we hit the months of October and we get into training camp? And let's say Kevin Durant's still on the Nets and the Celtics, these rumors are swirling above the Celtics. Like from a net side of thing, they're already in chaos. It won't matter. It's like it'll be a shit show. Like Kevin Durant's not at training camp, but everybody knows it. Everybody knows it's a disaster. So coming up, like it won't be. They'll have heard the question so many times that when they go to Royce O'Neal, is it weird not having Kevin Durant there? Nobody will care. But fast forward and you go to Boston Celtics camp, a team that's just come off an Eastern Conference championship. They're in the NBA Finals. They take the Golden State Warriors to 6. They played really well, obviously, and they're in training camp. Jaylen Brown's not sitting. Marcus Smart isn't sitting. So when they hear the questions about, hey, there's a trade coming down the night after they just played against the Atlanta Hawks, and here they are having to field questions about it, it will be a lot more intense if this is still prolonged during the season. Nets, shit show. It won't even matter. Celtics, though, good locker room, good chemistry, and now they're fielding questions about that. Might change some things where a trade where, maybe it's not a Marcus Smart. Celtics might give in a little bit when they're having to deal with it on a day-to-day basis in their locker room when the Nets are just like, we know we're a fucking shit show. We don't care. That could be a different dynamic where I don't blame the Nets and Sean Marks for waiting out a little bit. He's under a 4-year contract. Don't give in July when you get to October, and it might be really difficult for the Celtics to start saying no because things are starting to crumble internally.
Yeah, they have to give Jaylen Brown some promises, and they have to say, and see if you trust him, now, like after the things that I explained about Isaiah Thomas and all that stuff, the players remember that stuff. These guys, this wasn't 30 years ago. This was, less than 10 years ago. Right. So, a lot of that stuff's creeping in. So they need to promise Jaylen Brown that, no, you're good, man. You're our guy. We were just, shooting, shooting the shit, we're trying to see, Kevin Durant. I mean, you got to understand. And, but you're our guy. Don't worry about it. Let's go. Let's rock. And then if they do that and then they trade him, then they can lose Tatum, then they can lose everybody, I know. Yeah. So it's just, that's why it was obvious the Celtics did not leak that. They don't want that out there. No, and then if the Celtics know that the Nets leaked that, do they want to still deal with the Nets after all that? You know what I mean? So it's kind of, people have been getting on me, and I know we wanted to talk about this. I don't know if you're ready for this, but about the negotiating, how I hate negotiating. No, I don't hate negotiating. I just know in the NBA, when things go public, that means you were already been negotiating and shit hit a stat and shit hit the, it hit the wall, and you haven't been able to continue. And now you're trying to get leverage by taking it out into the atmosphere, or like trying to get the fans on your side, or trying to get the media on your side, trying to put pressure on the other team, trying to make the Celtics panic because now their star player hates them. That's what's happening here. And, it's rare that big trades that are slowly leaked out with rumors happen. The one exception is the James Harden and the Simmons trade, the Sixers. That happened, sure. But think about the Gobert trade. We didn't hear about that, but they were negotiating. Think about the Clippers and the Thunder with Paul George. We had no idea he was going to the Clippers. All of a sudden, we're like, holy shit, they got Kawhi and Paul George.
Right.
Think about Halliburton. for Sabonis. We didn't know that was coming. Or CJ McCollum with the Pelicans. That just came out of nowhere too.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these big trades that have happened, and these are a couple that I was thinking about before the episode, they all happened without even knowing. And to think that now all this is going to happen with Donovan Mitchell and this stuff is going public because they've hit a stag in negotiations and they haven't negotiated. They're not negotiating in the public. They said, this is my final offer. This is my final offer. And now they're just put the pressure on to see what can happen. And it's not negotiating. It's just like, let's neither of us got what we want. So let's try to get some angle somewhere and before something else happens.
Well, what I think makes this so odd though, is because it's in the middle of the offseason, like the James Harden deal and the CJ McCollum deal was these trades were happening in the season. Like Harden is a weird example because you knew he was going to Philly.
Right.
It was like, it was a matter of,
Mm-hmm.
It was a matter though, in that spot of like, what are we going to work around this? We know Simmons, we know Harden.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get the other components to make this work. What are the other pieces? Curry, Drummond, et cetera, draft picks, which it ended up being. We knew that trade was going to happen and it had to happen fast. There is so much time here and so much going on where also the Nets don't have to trade Kevin Durant to Boston. I think that will happen. But if another team then jumps in, they can. Simmons and Harden were being dealt. That was a no-brainer. There's so much time that's available here. So even though, yes, to your point, it was leaked and it's probably, as we know, been going on for a while, there's still more while to go on the back end that anything can happen. And the Nets would be foolish to give in just to get Jaylen Brown without more or other players without more because they just want to get rid of this problem. Who cares? Kevin Durant set this. He's going to have to deal with this. He doesn't want to be here. He just signed a 4-year contract. You're going to have to deal with the fact now that, yes, the Nets management butchered this and it's a fucking disaster, but you're going to have to deal with the point now that we're not just going to trade you to make you happy. We need to do something what's best for our organization. Now, over time, if it proves to be a waste of it and we could have had another guy and a deal done 2 months earlier, so be it. But you have to explore all your options when it's end of July and the season doesn't start till October and you already know your franchise is in a bit of a mess. Who cares if this is lingering over you who cares if this is going into December as opposed to being done now? You have to do what's best for your organization long-term, even if it means being a dick back to Kevin Durant. And that's why I say, yeah, that's true to your point. Yeah, this has been going on. It's at a stalemate, but you can rework this and reopen this and not have to give in right away. It's not James Harden at the deadline where he wasn't playing.
If Kevin
Durant doesn't show up, they know this. Like they're in this mental space already. It's before the season. They can organize their roster and just move forward. Harden, it was like he was tanking games.
Yeah.
It's a very different, both bad, but just different kinds of bad, unfortunately, for the Nets and their fans.
Yeah. And you say this all the time, deadlines make deals. And the deadline here is training camp. Because I bring this up all the time also where it's, the Melo situation with, before they traded to Oklahoma City. He's like, I don't want to go to Oklahoma City. I have a no trade clause. I don't want to go to Oklahoma City. And then they got the training camp and they're like, all right, well, you got to show up. And the last thing Melo wanted to do was talk to reporters at Knicks camp on a media day. So he said, fine, I'll go to fucking Oklahoma City, and that happened. So maybe that's going to happen here with Kevin Durant where, it is better because like, unlike the Harden situation, the players don't have to show up every day and talk. The coaches don't have to show up every day and talk. They can go through like severe, heavy media training and know what to say over the next 2 months leading into training camp. And then they'll be, seasoned and be like, I don't want to talk about this. And then Kevin Durant's not going to show up and then he's going to get fined. And Kyrie Irving's not going to want to show up, or maybe Kyrie will show up because he's a little crazy. He'll probably like the attention. Like, yeah, I'm here. I don't know. I want to play. I signed my contract, kind of some stupid shit.
Which would be great. I mean, seriously, if he had that attitude, come in, play.
Yeah.
That would
I'm sure
be
the
awesome.
Nets are going to love that,
I would.
It's deadlines make deals. And I think training camp is the deadline. I don't think Kevin Durant, you could see it when he reacts to tweets right now. You can see how he's doing that where, with Robin Lundberg, he's like, what do you want to know, Robin? And Robin said, well, are you going to show up? Are you going to do this or whatever? And he's like, yeah, yeah, right. Like I'm going to answer that, like some kind of response like that. I don't remember exactly what he said. he doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to talk about it. And this kind of stuff really annoys him. Kyrie loves the attention, but he says he doesn't. He's one of those like, I'm an introvert, but when he's really not. But Durant hates this shit. He just wants to play ball and wants to play ball with players that he wants to play ball with. But unfortunately, the NBA is a business and it doesn't work that way.
Right. Well, when you're a free agent, it does. And right.
Yeah, exactly. You don't always have that power, especially when you're 34 years old and you have 4 years left on your contract.
Yeah.
And you demanded a trade and you've been injured. It's not he doesn't have the leverage he thinks he has, and that's clear, right. And the Nets don't want to trade him. They're like, we signed you to this contract. Kyrie, they can give a shit about. I think the Nets, it's clear they want him to get the hell out of here. Get out of here. It's 1 year. We wish you just didn't sign your re-up your contract. But I don't know. I'm rambling here, and I really do think that the Nets want Kyrie gone and they want Durant to stay. So they're not going to accept anything for Durant. In my opinion.
The Knicks right now still in limbo on their end. The demands from Danny Ainge for high amounts of draft picks. And it's the same scenario, right? Like if this was, for example, the trade deadline, I don't think Danny Ainge would be like, we want 8 first-round picks and we're not talking or whatever, if you believe stuff like that. But because, again, to the same point, it's the end of July and there is nothing going on, there is no point for him to get in those serious negotiations. And unfortunately, from a Knicks fan perspective, as somebody, if you root for the team, and I'm sure you're just like, I want to just see this deal done. Whatever the damage is, if it's quickly, if it's Toppin, etc., who's going in, the picks, blah, blah, blah. At least mental clarity. Donovan Mitchell. Okay, this is what they gave up. Let's go into training camp.
Excited.
Boom, 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 boom. I got my team. But now you're kind of just like waiting. But unfortunately, just the timing of everything. And when you have two stubborn dudes for their own personal reasons wanting to get the best deal done, this is what you get, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And I think for Knicks fans now, either you'll get some random surprise of a trade coming out of nowhere, or this is going to sit tight for a while, just like the Kevin Durant news, and it's going to happen once training camp gets closer and closer.
Yeah, and the different situation here is that Donovan Mitchell has never officially demanded a trade.
Right.
So he's not putting the pressure on the Jazz, whether he is silently, I don't know. Like he's playing the PR game where he's like, so he can show up to Jazz camp and say, hey, I want to be here, and then, that helps the Jazz there too with their leverage. Meanwhile, everybody knows the Jazz want to tank for the French dude, so
half court threes.
He's like, oh man, yeah, and it's crazy. They want him, but like imagine them showing up with a team with like Beverly, Donovan Mitchell, and Jordan Clarkson, and they're gonna win some games. They're not gonna be a 50-win team, but they're gonna win 35, 40 games, and then they're not gonna be able to get that top pick.
Sure.
The Zion and John Morant lottery wins are probably going to happen once every 10 years, so we always like, oh, well, they can win it. They wanted at 32 wins, it's okay. Well, that's not going to happen every year. You can't count on that. And what also sucks in the background of this is that the Knicks are using this as a way to, in my opinion, they're using this as a way to get Julius Randle back on this team. Like, well, we were trying to get Donovan Mitchell. We were trying to get DeJounte Murray. We couldn't get him. So, we got to keep Julius Randle. And it's just like, are you kidding? And they lied about Murray, that they were trying to get him. They said they called the Spurs. The Spurs like, yo, they never called us. What are you talking about? We were just talking to the Hawks. The Knicks never called us. They lied. Now they're lying about trying to trade, about being superly heavily involved with Donovan Mitchell. They probably had a couple negotiations on one phone call, and then that leaked out what the trade was, that one trade. That's all we know. The rest of this stuff with Donovan Mitchell and the Knicks has been hearsay, has been hypothetical conversations with fans, has been nonsense. It's been total nonsense. And the Knicks are probably just sitting back saying, yeah, we're going to run it back and bring Brunson. And this is the team that Tibbs wants. We're going to start Fournier. We're going to have, we re-signed Mitch, which was great. And then we got to pay RJ Barrett. And then we're just going to hope that we can turn it around from 2 years ago and do what we did, when it's not going to happen. It's just, and they need to make this move. And this is the guy, this is the person to do it. And that's why I get so upset that they didn't get it done initially, because now it's just a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah. It's all nonsense.
Right. And it's all nonsense where it's like, you could have gotten it done a month ago when you were initially talking, but you got cold feet and you didn't want to give up the 6 picks plus, quickly Toppin and Grimes, which I understand. But you know what? Keep negotiating. Don't say this is our final offer and see you later. Keep calling. Don't just sit back and be like, well, we'll just let the deals come to us. That doesn't work because now the Heat and these other teams, we talk about this every episode. I'm so fucking tired of talking about it. That every, or on Twitter, just keep talking about the same crap, but it's relevant. It's the most relevant story with the Knicks because it's holding up the entire organization. Where it's just, how can you just sit back and like they're just good? The Jazz are going to come back to us. No, they don't have to. They don't have to come back to us, and you can't be okay with this squad rolling into next year because they're going to be a play-in team unless RJ Barrett takes a huge step. And it's just Julius Randle can't do it here. Tibbs is going to be too stubborn. It's going to be the same crap, Mike. The same crap.
Well, it's just the circumstance. I think Danny Ainge is, you say like don't be afraid of Danny Ainge, but this is what he doesn't care. I mean, he really doesn't care about what Knicks fans' feelings are. And if he's going to go in with insane demands and not give in, this is just the waiting game. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do or Leon Rose can do about it unless he wants to get ridiculous and give everything back, which he can't. You're just going to have to wait. And if that means that Danny Ainge then goes to another team and, like, God forbid for Knicks fans, does make a trade and he ends up on the Miami Heat, then he does, and he won't care. And I don't know how Donovan Mitchell will feel about that. I mean, I don't know if
everybody wants to go to Miami. It's
I mean, I don't know if he's like,
yeah,
if it's Knicks or nothing for him, if he goes, if he was, but like goes to the Nets, got dealt to the Nets or got dealt to Miami, and it was like, it's not the same. It's not my. I mean,
good enough.
He's still in New York, but I'm sure it'll be a little different for him. If it's just like, okay, I'm in Miami. I was excited to be at the Garden playing where I grew up, but oh well, this is still fine. I don't know where his head's at, if he really even cares. And he's like, Danny, you got to get me to New York. You got to get me to the Knicks. Or if it's like, my preferred destination is the Knicks, but if it happens and you end up sending me to, like, I'm not saying he's going to a non-contending team, but if you're like, you get me to Miami, I can compete for a championship, so be it. I don't know where his head's at on that, but I think that'd be a really interesting dynamic for how Danny Ainge negotiates, or if Danny Ainge cares. If he's like, Donovan, I don't really give a shit, like, we're gonna trade you. Don't worry, I'm not gonna put you in a bad situation, but I'm not sure if I can put you in the situation that you want perfectly.
Yeah, and Donovan Mitchell's been a good guy to Ainge and been not doing the public trade demand and been on the same page. But at the same time, Danny Ainge is also the same guy who screwed over Isaiah Thomas without even giving a damn, So he doesn't really care about Donovan Mitchell. And if you've noticed, I know he's always at Mets games, but if you notice, Donovan Mitchell's been out and about a lot more this summer. I was
going to ask you that if it felt like it's been more than usual, or like in the past, you don't really. He's at a Met game, but you wouldn't really think about it because he's not. All this isn't swirling around, so you think more. I do think
more. I know the pandemic, so that kind of was like not a year that anybody was there, and then even the year after the pandemic wasn't really a year that people were around. But I don't recall before that him being around that much. I remember him being at games and every now and then, like, oh, there's Donovan Mitchell. Like, oh man, I wish the Knicks took him, kind of a thing. But then that's it. But now it's like he's throwing out the first pitch at the Cyclones. He's sitting in a suite with not with Brunson, but Brunson's there too. And it's the Mets and Yankees game this week. And there was a fan that got a picture with Jaylen Brunson and with Donovan Mitchell at separate times. So fans were like, photoshopping them together. Like, look, they're at a game, kind of a thing. It was funny. But there's no way that Brunson and Mitchell did not hang out in behind the scenes, but they're like, no phones. They're definitely friends, or they played against each other in the playoffs. When the Knicks brass showed up in the playoffs, so they know each other. But either way, I do think Donovan Mitchell has been out and about a lot more in New York than he usually is. And this is his way of saying, like, yo, man, come on. Like, this is where I need to go. This is where I need to be. The Knicks have let's get this done. It's so indirect that it's direct. If it just feels that way. I mean, I feel like Evan Roberts can probably speak on this a little more with the Mets, if he's always at games, since he's always there and he he knows what's going on a little more. But somebody like that, I just don't recall him being at every game, being all the time, being right there front and center. Like, he could be at a game and be in the back of a box, but at the Mets Yankees game, he's sitting front row in a suite where fans can see him. There were fans taking pictures of him from the stands. Like, we see him.
He's liking it.
He wants to be here. So just get it done, man. I'm so tired, just keep negotiating. Like, the players, I mean, I love Quickly, Toppin, and Grimes. I do. But they're not making me lose any sleep for Donovan Mitchell. It's the picks. It's the picks. It's the picks. It's the picks. You know, just keep negotiating. Don't put down the phone and be like, they'll come back to us, because that's not always the best strategy, because it might not work. And we're seeing it right now. Is it going to work? I don't know. But do I want to show up to training camp with Julius Randle on the same roster with just Jalen Brunson and Isaiah Hartenstein? Fuck no, man. it's going to be such a buzzkill. If they get rid of Randle, but they don't get Mitchell, then I can get a little bit excited. And at least like we're going to see a young team that's going to run and gun, and maybe we'll have some fun. Right. But don't bring me Randle back next year and with just Jalen Brunson. Like, give me a fucking break.
There was more Julius Randle videos out there of him dunking and stuff. And one guy wrote, I don't usually say this, but he looks a little bouncy. And I'm like, I mean, he's just playing nobody.
Bouncy. He looks bouncy, guys.
It's just hard to.
He's skinnier.
My opinion, it's just hard to gauge based on that. Just like the the Mitchell Robinson threes. This happens with the Nets with Nick Claxton. He falls into this group where Nick Claxton's looking good. It's like, yeah, man, this is the NBA. I would assume that guys playing against chairs one-on-one are gonna win. Right. Yeah. I think that's just a fair assumption at this point. But the make believe in the brain to just want to say somebody got great because of all these videos is nonsensical. I mean, it's really bizarre, actually. I get it, because you're fans and you're so excited and you'll do like you just crave it. you have to take it with a grain of salt and just be a little smarter when watching things. That this is just, it's Julius Randle versus a broom. He's gonna win. The broom's not going to win.
No, it's not. And we look at like guys like Mitchell Robinson, Julius Randle, be like, oh, these guys don't have great handles, but like they would cross us.
Right. Like, it's all relative. Everything's relative. Everything's relative. We did put out a tweet and ask for questions. We got one, and I wanted to just read this for the audience and answer this question. Right? At brain_storms. And I'm really excited to answer this because my answer is going to suck. Going back to a past question, I asked before, which team has the brighter future, Knicks or Nets? Needs an update since the two sociopaths in Brooklyn demanded a trade, and the Knicks signed Brunson and might trade Mitchell. My answer to your question is I have no idea.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Too much. It's an unanswerable question because there's so much lingering. If Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are back with Simmons, are they being traded? Is Mitchell coming? I like the question and I appreciate the question. I know the angle you're going at because the Knicks have closed the gap in on the Nets for sure. But to answer the question would be just impossible now, and just playing a game of what if in different directions and an unanswerable question, not as a Net fan trying to escape the Knicks closing the gap on the Nets, more of there's just too much lingering to give an honest answer.
Yeah, we don't know, and that's the problem with both teams. It's the Knicks and the Nets are kind of holding up the whole NBA in a way. Both teams are both involved, and the Jazz and whatever. But these two players and three players, like Kyrie as well, are holding up the entire NBA. Well, maybe not Kyrie, because I feel like the Nets would be okay with paying Kyrie and then sending him home. I think the Nets would be totally okay with that. But Kyrie might do something like show up at a game.
Who knows? There's been a lot of reports with him, and he wants to be here, doesn't want to be here. All of it is garbage. I mean, it's just
he doesn't want to be here. He tried to get a trade. Yeah, nobody wanted him,
but he might end up staying here if nothing. It's like any option is if anybody. I think with the Nets and their track record, I think if there's anything we can say, you don't know, anything is possible. And I'm not saying that as they got to be gone. Oh, we demanded, like the way this organization and the way these players have reacted with them. If they woke up one morning and said, I changed my mind, I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be surprised, but anything is, look at everything that has happened since James Harden really arrived. I mean, anything is possible. Man, I sound like
Kevin Garnett,
but really in a negative or positive way. Wouldn't shock me if anything happened in any direction. At this point, it's a guessing game.
And you've been on this because your nervousness, your Nets fan nervousness, where it was right in this situation where a couple of weeks ago we're like, I hate that they're playing cardboard Kyrie. I feel like it's going to piss off Durant. That this is the risk that they're taking, and you nailed it. And then out of nowhere, Kevin Durant demanded a trade, and now what the hell is your team?
And I think the more and more we see things, there's probably smaller details. Like I said, I don't think
Yeah.
it was just that. I think there's a lot to do with like the coaching staff, like this Adam Harrington firing.
Who's that?
Crushed it. He's the Nets assistant. He's Kevin Durant's guy. They got rid of him, and now he's practicing with him out west. And it's just little things like that, I think, really added up. If it's the firing of assistant coaches, it's not giving Kyrie. It's Kyrie Irving. If it's not getting the guy, like let's say for example, he went to Sean Marks and said, "I want Steve Nash gone," and Sean Marks held his ground. You did that with Kenny Atkinson. We're not going to do this
my
again.
friend.
He's my friend.
Yeah,
and then Durant's like, "You're not giving me this. You're not giving me that. You're not giving me this.
How much more do I need to give?" Yeah.
Well, that's right. I mean, you can say that, but at the same time, it's a superstar league.
Right.
And if you, for example, if Donovan Mitchell is on the Utah Jazz, and let's say, and it's a little different example because Net fans don't like Steve Nash, and want him gone per se. But if let's say, well, I guess maybe this is an example. If let's say he got to the Knicks, and Donovan Mitchell said to Leon Rose, "I need Tom Thibodeau gone. Like I can't do this.
Bye.
It's not working." And Leon Rose said no. Would you go, well, it's a you have to have respect. This is how the work. You can't just pick and choose who you want. Or you go, well, it's a superstar. He makes the decisions.
Yeah.
You just, even if, let's say it wasn't Tom Thibodeau and you had the best coach in the league, you had this guy that you thought was great, not the best coach, but just you really love the coach. And Donovan Mitchell said, "I want him gone." Who would you pick?
Donovan Mitchell.
Right. Sure. Exactly. Yeah. So who are you going to pick? A Nets assistant coach or Kevin Durant? Stupid. It's stupid.
It's
like it or not, it's dumb.
It's dumb. It's all dumb. I agree. And it's you got to play but that's why Pat Riley nailed this completely. Like, yeah, he lost LeBron after 4 years, but there was a line in the sand, and he was like, "No, we're the bosses. You're the players. Spoelstra's our coach. We're not firing him." And look what happened. Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the NBA. He developed it, and he won some championships, and he's got a team to the finals after LeBron. I know it was the bubble, whatever, but there's got to be a situation where there's a hierarchy, because if there's not, then you hit what's going on with the Nets. And there's this also that LeBron had the contract. He had the long contract for 4 years, and that's why a lot of times that these guys are like, and LeBron I think learned his lesson with that, where he's taking like the 1-and-1s, where he's like getting the player option in 1 year, and he's just taking short contracts, so he has the leverage. Because somebody like Kevin Durant right now, he has no leverage. His leverage is, I'm a superstar, I want to be traded. That's it. The Nets can just be like, well, you're going to show up and now you're going to waste your career. It's just, now it's like a staring game. And Riley used that contract over LeBron. Like, no, man, I'm not firing him. I'm not doing everything that you want, until he was ready to leave walk out the door. And he's like, fine, I'll draft Shabazz Napier. You want to stay, please? It's just, that didn't work out, so
I think that's the outlier a little bit more. And I also think Pat Riley is like the ultimate demands respect guy. Like, I don't think Sean Marks is getting the same respect that Pat Riley is. I think Kevin Durant views Sean Marks very differently than LeBron probably views Pat Riley, because of Pat Riley's pedigree of what he did with the Lakers, what he did with the Knicks, and of course what he did with Miami, even pre-LeBron James, and in his Hall of Fame resume. Sean Marks did a nice job, don't get me wrong, rebuilding the Nets from nothing to get them to where they are, but he's nowhere near what Pat Riley is. And there's an aura of him like that is probably a little bit different. Like, you look at Pat Riley, but man, I fucking hate that guy, but I respect him. I see Sean Marks, I fucking hate that guy, and I don't respect him. And I think there's a little bit of that angle where it probably happens more in the Sean Marks angle than it does in the Pat Riley side. I would say like Riley, Jerry West, there's not many GMs or presidents of basketball operations that probably demand that kind of respect.
That's
so
fair.
I agree with you, but I think it's more of an outlier. And unfortunately, you have to give more of what's happening where you just say, take it all. Like, for example, we talked about in the past, LeBron with Dan Gilbert, where Dan Gilbert just had to be like, I don't like what's happening to my organization, but when I have the top 2 player ever, tough shit.
Sorry, I got to take it. Yeah, no, and you're right. I mean, you made a good point. So it just, yeah, because Riley would, even as a player, he won championships, and then as a coach, he won championships, and then as the Knicks and the Heat, and it's different and dynamic. And LeBron is somebody who understands the history of the game and respected him. So I guess there's that. But at the same time, you still have to try to find that kind of,
I agree. No, it's tough.
Or if you go all in, like we always say, if you made the deal with the devil, you have to complete the deal. You can't back out of the deal in the middle of the deal. Like you have to see it through for another 4 years with Durant. That's it. And then in 4 years, you got to bite the bullet, like Dan Gilbert, bite the bullet. You hate LeBron, but guess what? This means more than his personality. Let's win a championship for Cleveland that hasn't won one in 110 years, and let's go. You know, and they did. And now he can kick him to the curb, and LeBron could show up on Old Timers Day and wave his hand, and everybody was happy. You know, so there's that. So I don't know. I have nothing else to say on that.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit of this, and then we'll wrap things up. Mets Yankees, middle of the week. Mets take 2 versus the Yanks in the Subway Series, which was a lot of fun for Met fans in particular. Yes, 2 very exciting baseball games as well. Just kind of wacky plays, walk-off hit from Marte, and then, the Diaz 9th inning, which was wild in game number 1. I don't want to break down the game. I find it very funny from a Net fan perspective, seeing the Met Yankee trash talk. Now, Nick Net trash talk is something that's a little newer, and it's a little fresher, as the Nets have really, rightfully or wrongly, put themselves in the spotlight where Knicks fans are angry at them. Met Yankee has been going on for a much longer time, but it's really fascinating to me, one, to just see the dynamic back and forth, and then because I recognize a lot of the people on Twitter that follow our show as either Knicks fans or Net fans. So when I see them put on their either Yankee glasses or Met glasses, it kind of weirds me out a little bit. So it's funny seeing like Knicks fans that are Met fans and Net fans that are Yankee fans kind of switch roles and how they view a rivalry and how they view the two teams. I just find very fascinating, and it points hypocritical by people when they start using the same jargon against the other team that they dislike hearing about their own.
Yeah. See, I hear you. And the whole thing is like, I'm going to bring this full circle. So I'm a Knicks, Jets, and Mets fan, right? So I've always been the little brother in the Jets and the Mets, and the Knicks, it's been different. But with the Mets, as a Mets fan, the Yankees are the premier team in all of sports. It's not just
they're up. They're in the
Lakers, the Yankees,
Big Four.
What's the soccer team?
Cowboys are in there.
Cowboys. Yeah, like when you think of a baseball team, you think of the Yankees. You think of New York, you think of the Yankees. It's just there's no comparison. Yes, the Mets have a serious fan base, and the Mets have owned the town in the 80s. We know all the stories. But it's the Yankees have the history. They have Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle. Like, this is not a comparison, okay? So it's the Mets fans know their role. That's why we love beating them, right? Then you have the Jets and the Giants. Yes, the Giants are this prestigious team, but there are a shit ton of Jets fans based on when they were established after being the Titans for a couple of years, and then Joe Namath, and there's a lot of Jets fans in New York. I think the gap is closer between the Jets and the Giants than it is with any teams in this town, right? But the Giants are insane, and they have a lot of fans. But I think when the Jets have been bad for so long, 10 years. I mean, they had 1 year in 2015, whatever. But the Jets have been bad for so long. But we forget that during that Parcells era that he started, and then Herman Edwards and Mangini and all these guys, they were good, and there were a lot of Jets fans, man. Like it was a big. It's not as far apart. Obviously, it's more Giants fans, but it's not as far apart as you think. When it comes to the Knicks and the Nets were in New Jersey. So there's not that long-standing Nets fan besides like you and Evan and
there's more than just a couple other people.
But I'm saying in the 90s growing up, like I'm saying I grew up on Long Island in the 90s growing up. There were no Net fans. I never met a Nets fan. Like I didn't meet one. I'm not trying to be an asshole. Like I didn't meet a Nets fan. They didn't exist. Where I lived, they didn't exist. When I went to college, they didn't exist anywhere. So, and I'm 37 years old. Like I didn't know any Nets fans until they moved to Brooklyn. And then all of a sudden they're establishing a fan base, and they've grown a lot. And I'm not diminishing that, but it's different between the Knicks and the Nets, because the Knicks have this arrogance. Knicks fans have this arrogance of like, we own the city not because of wins, just because we've been the only team in town.
Right.
So it's different when you're looking at it from that perspective. And that I just wanted to go there. So I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's a very good perspective to have, but it's still the same jargon back and forth where the
It is.
conversation might be, yeah, that's true. Maybe the Yankees. This I do want to say one thing. I don't think the Yankee Met gap is as big as you think. I think what happens is the Yankee Met gap changes when you leave the area. But I think internally, like Met Yankee fans, I mean, it'd be impossible to poll everybody. But I think there's just as many Met fans as there are Yankee fans in the city and in the surrounding areas. I think what happens is the Yankee fan just grows larger when you go to, when you go to Nebraska and there's random baseball fans. There's probably more Yankee fans than Met fans there. But as far as in-house, I think it's very similar to Jets and Giants, where you just have two very passionate fan bases with a lot of fans. You want to work out details, 55%, 45%, whatever. I think it's very, very close. And I think, from a Met Jet perspective, those are two fan bases that have not seen success like the other two, so they're probably even more pent up, and you can kind of feel that. But to your point, you still see the same conversation where it's the belittling of the other one, warranted or not warranted, and that's the point I'm making. Is it's just funny when you just change the conversation to fit how you feel about things, and that's just not being fair to it all, and that just irritates me.
I understand. No, I understand. And I know you're talking about the conversations on Twitter this week. I forgot who tweeted that. Was it who was the one who put that out, that they were arguing on WFAN? It was Keith and somebody.
It's on the fan. It's Keith McPherson and Sal Licata, and it's funny because like Sal is a huge Met fan. I think he says he's a Knicks fan, but I don't think
he's one of those. It's been 20 years Knicks fans, but like,
but then like, shits on the Nets and rightfully so, was excited when they lost, was wearing a Celtics jersey, but then moves to the Met passion and uses the same kind of logical anger versus the Yankees that Net fans would use versus the Knicks. And then Keith, which would do the same thing as a Net fan, would be upset about the Knicks, but then as a Yankee fan would belittle the Mets. And I'm just seeing this conversation between the two guys, and I find it fascinating because both of them have had the same argument on the different side of the aisle for different topics. Right. So I'm a person, like, if you're a Democrat or Republican, maybe it's best if you just have viewpoints on certain topics, how you feel about things. So maybe that's what they're doing, where it's like, well, when it's my team on this side, I'm going to argue it this way. When it's my team on that side, I'm going to argue it that way. But then missing the point of you're having the same conversation on the different side of the aisle and not being able to recognize that this is the same conversation is blowing my mind.
I hear you. And it's just funny because I'm thinking about how you always say you can argue any point in sports. If you really want to argue it, like a lawyer in law school, I didn't go to law school, but I dated a girl who did. And she said that they would literally have topics. And even if you didn't care about the topic, you had to argue it. And if you didn't agree, argue that topic this way and make sure you can win this argument, because that's all you have to do. Like that's what, and that's
some harder than others.
Yeah, of course. And that's, like right now, if I wanted to argue against the Knicks keeping trading Julius Randle, I can do it. Be like, they should keep him. Well, he was all NBA 2 years ago and he was an all-star and maybe he'll turn it around in one bad year. And, we should give him a shot. He's still with the same coach. Meanwhile, I know I don't agree with any of that shit, but like, it's just is what it is. And it's just funny. It's like, Nets fans have this inferiority complex with the Knicks, which is rightfully so. And Knicks are more arrogant than they should. Knicks fans are more arrogant than they should be. But like when I'm talking about with the Mets and the Yankees, it's not about like, I probably said it wrong. Sure. The Yankees and the Mets, there's a lot of Mets fans and I'm one of them, but I think Mets fans know their role with the Yankees, sort of like, all right, well, these are the Yankees. Like, you know what I mean? Like we hate them but they're the fucking Yankees. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like that with the Jets and the Giants, it's not like that, so go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's solid, but I think for the Net perspective, it's like they look at the Knicks and they go, they don't know their role. They think they're the Yankees with the Mets history. And that's what's frustrating. It's like, yeah, you think you're the Yankees, but you're actually the Mets. And that's the problem. And from the Knicks side of things, well, we feel that way because you've never been here. And now you're here. And it's like, well, who are you? If we think we're the Yankees with the Mets history, who the hell are you? The Baltimore Orioles coming to town? Like, that's how the Knicks fan probably feels about it, seeing it from that angle. Also, what you said, though, I'd love to do something, and I've had this thought boiling in my head. And if we had, we need someone to help us set it up, because I don't want it, because if I do it or you do it, it kind of screws it up. but I had this idea, and we can workshop it here on air because I think it's funny. Is that I want to have like a list of topics, and basically
Okay.
pull it out, and you have to argue that topic regardless of how you feel about it. And
Yeah.
it could be something like where I get a card about why Julius Randle is a good fit for the Knicks, or you have to argue why the Nets should keep Kyrie Irving, whatever, like all these fun things.
Yeah.
Pick them out of a hat, and then you have to make that argument regardless of how you really feel about the topic. And it could be net Nick related, but I think other stuff would be funny too. And then have a debate about it is something that's been brewing in my head to do as an idea. We just need someone to help because I don't want to know the topics before. I want to be completely fresh on the ideas and not be like, well, I wrote them. I kind of already have my pre-biases. That's where I think someone would need to help. So it's going in knowing none of this stuff.
You know who would be good to host that? Dolan J. Trump would be perfect.
Yeah.
To host that for us.
Yeah, that's a
And
good
I'm sure
idea.
he'd do it.
Yeah, you got to do it. Damn it.
So yeah, no, that'd be really funny. And it just shows that you can argue anything. It'll be funny to do that. So,
and with
I hear
nothing
you.
going on in the summer.
Nothing at all
Nothing-
going on in the
thought.
summer.
And
It's all good. I mean, I'm excited. Mets trade the trade deadline's coming up, so we'll see what happens. It's kind of funny. Like the one thing that's out there that nobody's really talking about, the Mets traded for some reliever and nonsense, whatever. But the one crazy thing that's been out there is Otani. And if can you imagine?
God,
that's got Otani. I don't know what they would have to give up, but like he's been out there.
That.
The Mets called, whatever, but that'd be nuts. So whatever. The Mets, I made some trades, nothing substantial, but you know what? So it's all good. Well, I'm hoping for the big one for Soto, but I think Soto might be going to the Padres, which is unfortunate, but we'll see.
You'll like this. So I'm in Pittsburgh, and I love my brother-in-law. He's a diehard Pirates fan. And he reads all Pittsburgh stuff, and he said there was a writer, I don't remember where, who argued why the Pirates will trade could have a good deal for Juan Soto, and he was like, "This was the dumbest thing I've ever read in my life."
Pirates, yeah.
He's like, I don't know how that's, but anyway, I was just like, I can't see that happening, or them, because considering that his 1 year would be more than their whole payroll, seems pretty impossible that he would want to come to Pittsburgh and then give him an extension.
Yeah, that would be crazy. Yeah, so the Mets did make a trade last night. They got a reliever, this guy Philip Deal, and another player, Tyler Naquin, a lefty from the Reds. These two guys I've never heard of. So, and I'm pretty into baseball and fantasy, and I've never heard of them. So they must be bench players or not that great. I don't know who they gave up. Probably some low level prospects just to get some major league players on the team. And those aren't the trades we're excited about. Vogelbach was fun, and he's been good. And he's that fat guy that everybody loves, like Bartolo Colon or Brian Windhorst. Those are the guys that everybody loves.
Brian Windhorst. Why do everything have to go into Brian? This poor guy. I like Brian Windhorst. Like he's really.
It's not because he's fat, right?
He's been the star of the offseason.
Yes.
If power rankings, if the stocks for Woj and Shams have gone down, you bought stock in Windhorst. I mean, you are feeling the goods right now. Right. He's been up. He's been up big.
Yep. All right. Well, let's hope some more news happens and Donovan Mitchell's a Knick soon. And
or he's a Net.
Or he's a Net.
Nah, he probably won't be. I think would you rather have Jaylen Brown or Donovan Mitchell? Boom, 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 boom. That'd be a good one to argue. That'd be a good one on the fun side of that.
Honestly, gun to my head, Jaylen Brown.
Because of his defense.
Yeah. And, he's played in the big market. I know Donovan Mitchell's a New Yorker, so I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah.
But which doesn't always add up, actually. Marbury was a New Yorker. Rich Kotite is from Staten Island. It doesn't always work out.
No, it doesn't.
So, I think Jaylen Brown. I love Donovan Mitchell, but I think Jaylen Brown I'd rather have. Mitchell's probably a better player offensively, but Jaylen Brown, I think, is more the full package. Yeah.
See, that would be a good one in that.
That is.
Throw it up there, which will be if Brown goes to the Nets and Mitchell goes to the Knicks, that I guarantee you will be some sort of topic somewhere.
Yeah. 100%. Or not like the stupid Knicks ones that come up in the spaces. And I love the people with the spaces. They love it and they're passionate about it. It's great. But some of the topics are mind numbing. Like, who would you rather have, Quentin Grimes or Cam Reddish? Like, who the fuck cares? You know what I mean? Like, it's just so stupid, like Quentin Grimes, obviously, but who fucking cares? Like, what we're making up a debate. Like, obviously Grimes is going to play, it's just,
I love
silly.
Knicks spaces.
Yeah.
Although I haven't done it this week. Like I stole it because it actually got boring this week. I was like, this is the same conversation, but with 40 less people. I mean, I was like,
Yeah, nothing's changed. That this week, thank God for the Mets and Yankees this week, because it really took the attention off of the Knicks and the Nets, and we were able to like table these rumors and just focus on come together as a city and talk about the Mets and Yankees. And even if you don't like baseball, you had to be living under a rock to not understand what was happening with the Mets and the Yankees. So whatever. Now we're here.
This has been Bad Weather Fans, episode 127. Don't forget, subscribe, or the new terminology for that is follow, as I told myself I would do that a better job. But follow the show. You can also watch it on YouTube. Go ahead to Bad Weather Fans, type it in, subscribe there, because it is subscribe on YouTube. Follow on Apple, Bizarre, and Spotify. Just
download the episodes.
Download the episodes. But if you want to see the video, we always appreciate that. Tweet it out. Take a screenshot of it. Show us where you're watching it. We love that. At Nick Central for Alex, I'm at Mike Delivers Pod. Maybe one of these days we'll do an episode where we're reacting to 2 mega trades for our franchises. Till then, we keep steamrolling, we keep doing our thing and having a lot of fun. So thank you to all the support out there for Bad Weather Fans as we continue to grow and do amazing things. Alex, enjoyed it on a Friday morning. 2 cups of coffee done. Enjoy your weekend, man.
You too. Have a great weekend.